How's it going? I was looking for you earlier. I couldn't find you. I heard you. Yeah.
Hello everyone, thank you very much for being here and attending the panel. So the start time is only 10 minutes, but meanwhile, our four panelists, and so going from right to left, Scott McGough, writer, Jeff Grubb, game designer, Soesbee, game designer, and Ferguson, writer. I've got trouble. After three. Because we have 10 minutes, we agreed to let the audience ask them questions. Anyone has questions? We're going to use, either you shout very, very loudly, and I try to repeat the question, or we have a microphone in the center line. Anyone has questions for all game designers and writers?
We will do questions at the end of the session. We're just bucking and weaving until everybody gets here. Yeah, we get somebody with his hand up right up.
I was going to ask, is Logan Thackeray really in love with Queen Jenna, or is it her spell?
What is love but the spell? he is really in love with her, and I believe it's reciprocated as well. They do come from completely different worlds, but I think that Logan and Logan is the problem is Logan, and he's very protective, and I think that's part of his challenge as a person.
For all those kind of chaotic little minor races like the Centaur and Great, are we ever going to see any backstory or more of that information?
Have you seen our blog? We've been doing posts on the blog monthly, and a lot of them have covered the background of the minor races in tremendous depth, with quotes and comments and flavor bits, as well as with deep lore. The Crate have their own entry. I'm not sure the Centaur entry has come up, but I believe we wrote one.
Right.
We've done the Harpies, we've done the Quaggin, we've done the Brawl. They all have a little script. Go back through our blog, the ArenaNet blog, and you will totally find exactly what we're looking for.
Yes. Is the third novel forthcoming?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
They kept me very mum on it, mostly by tying me to my desk and putting a gag in my mouth. But I was allowed to announce at Gamescom in Germany last month that I will in fact be writing the third book. It is called Sea of Sorrows, and it is the story of a man's life, and when he's a very young man, the dragon Zaitan rises up out of the ocean and sinks Lion's Arch, and by the end of his long life, Lion's Arch is again a city.
So it's the story of Lion's Arch.
It really is the story of Lion's Arch
as well. And it's really, I'm excited by it. I'm going to reveal that she cut out 2/3 of it, made 2/3 of it available for her first draft available for review, and I'm going to do it now. Over here.
As someone who played a bit of Guild Wars 1, but never got super deep into the lore, read one or maybe two books. I feel like it's a huge amount of lore. And I want to prep myself for Guild Wars 2. What would you guys say is the best way for me to dive in without getting overwhelmed by all the stuff?
Well, I think the novels work out real well. I think playing Guild Wars 1 helps. One of the big things we have in doing Guild Wars 2 and doing lore for Guild Wars 2 is we recognize we have this foundation, this heritage, this history that we build upon, but we also want to reach out to players who have never played Guild Wars 2. So we don't want it to be a mystery or too much information when you are part of the world. We're trying to give everybody a good background so that they are comfortable and feel like they're part of this world, but not like you have to play Guild Wars 1 or you have to read the novels in order to understand what's going on. first book tells us a lot about the races. It tells us about how why the humans and the Charr are no longer at each other's throats. The second novel talks about the iconic characters. In the adventure, when you're playing Guild Wars 2, you start out, you'll be teamed up with one of the iconics. Logan Thackeray, Zoja, Air, and it starts off with you are working for them. You know, they're giving you direction. Then you become their friend, you become their equal, and you discover they have problems as well. And one of the big problems is the one that's detailed in Enter Destiny, where this greatest adventure group of all time breaks up because they failed. And part of the story, their story in Guild Wars 2, is how they get past that, how they get back.
One of the things we've gone into in great depth is trying to give each of the iconic characters sort of their own reason and their own way of dealing with that, because it was very difficult in different ways for each of them.
In game design, when you start off and play the demos, the human demo is very different in tone than the Norn demo. The human demo is you're defending people, the Shaymore against centaurs. You're being very defensive, protective. You know, you're trying to preserve things. Whereas the Norn tutorial is very much, I'm going out, I'm part of the great hunt, I'm having an adventure, I'm about to write my legend. So you get different vibes from different races. And this was one of our goals when we came up with the different races, was to give them all their own flavor and their own accessibility, so they aren't all the same.
Yeah, I'll add something about the novels too. They're good because they're about characters, like you were saying. And as far as the lore of Guild Wars 2, it's been 250 years since the original one. So a lot of that stuff is reflected in how the characters are now, which you see in the novel quite a bit.
Yeah, right back here in the corner.
Actually, the question, since the professions have greatly evolved since the first game, is there going to be any lore-based explanation of why there was a transition into what's present now in Guild Wars 2?
We see that somewhat with, say, Guardian, for example.
Yeah.
Their skills are no longer quite as specifically tied into a particular human god, because a Guardian can be any race now, instead of a monk being just human. So we just restrict that to more general energy and spirit.
I covered the Guardian a little bit in Germany in a War Tower, an interview for War Tower, where I talked about how the Guardian's magic isn't just human faith in the gods.
No, I got that. I meant like actually in the game, not
Like,
on the...
well, was there a case where we had the last monk or the final assassin? And this is an opinion here. Is the idea of the world of Tyria is a living world, and therefore when we did Guild Wars 1, the abilities, the professions, basically mimic what was in there in the world. And so too in Guild Wars 2, the professions that we have evolved over time, have developed over time, and you've seen that type of change. But really what we're looking for is the professions to match up with what the world would turn into, as opposed to there was an epic or there was a crisis that basically got rid of all the previous ones.
Well, that's what I mean. So you kind of answered that.
That's kind of where we're coming from, though, too. It's more of a natural evolution, though, as opposed to we wake up one morning and all the monks are gone.
Yeah, they exchanged training and so forth, so it wasn't a cutoff.
Now, I'm going to jump ship and talk about long ago and far away. I worked on a project called the Forgotten Realms. And when we went from first edition to second edition, we got rid of the assassin class. And we decided we're going to get rid of all the assassins. And we wrote a story in which all the assassins died. And Bob Salvador had a character who, bad guy character he was using, Artemis, who was an assassin. And, the book department says, well, you have to call Bob and tell him that we're going to have to kill off his character. Yeah, I really wanted to do that. and I called him up and I said, okay, well, here's the thing. He's an assassin. We aren't going to have assassins anymore. He's going to have to go away. We can send him off somewhere, or send him to the assassin farm. And Bob said, can I call you back in 5 minutes? I go, sure. He calls me back and he says, he's not an assassin. He's not. No. He just kills people for money. Okay, Artemis and Jerry gets to live. He's not an assassin. And I feel that much that same sort of way about the monks versus the guardians, and the evolution of how we got to the engineer and the other professions, how the professions evolve. It is an evolution over time. And we are into time right now.
And we are right on time to start.
Okay.
So I leave you to these four.
Scott, kick it off.
Thank you and welcome and thank you for attending the panel. I'm Scott McGough. I'm on the writing team for Guild Wars 2 and I'm currently embedded in the personal story team.
Oh, you do the invite. I'm Jeff Grubb. I am a game designer in doing content design, and I'm responsible for lore and continuity.
I'm Soesbee. I am the other half of Jeff's brain. I also do lore and continuity and work with the writing team.
I'm Ferguson. I'm a writer. I do a lot of text writing currently. I work a lot with these two and Scott on the personal story and dungeons.
Now, the title of this panel was Lore and Writing, and we have divided those. That's a pretty clear distinction. The difference between lore and writing as we're approaching it. Lore is strategy, writing is tactics, or to put it another way, lore is plot, and the writing is the actual story, the execution of that plot. Jeff and Reed did a lot of the groundwork, in fact, all of the groundwork. I didn't join ArenaNet until after all the foundations were laid down for Guild Wars 2, so I have been focused largely on execution, just making sure that the good ideas they put into the Charr, and Sylvari, and the Norn are realized in the game. So I think we're going to look to Jeff and Reed to talk about the actual lore end of it, because they're the ones who started on the front end, front-loading a lot of this stuff that's going to be interesting and gives us the tools we need to make the execution interesting. Just to start off, I think a good place, a good handle. I'm fascinated by the Charr, and I'm very interested in the idea of the bad guys becoming a playable race. And so I thought I'd ask Jeff and Reed, when did that idea first hit you guys? When did it become clear that the Charr were going to be playable in Guild Wars 2?
I think the big, this is actually before Reed joined them. When we made the decision that we would have more than just humans as playable races in Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 1, we played Guild Wars 1, you were a human. And that had a lot of advantages as far as we had, a particular skeletal animation and a set of animations that work, and armor works in a particular function. So we had a single race. That worked out real nicely, and it was very neat and affordable for the game. But as going to Guild Wars 2, we really did want to expand out into more races. And the first race that was on the list was, the Charr themselves, because they were one of the best known races for prophecies. And they were the bad guy races. And seriously, for about a week, we talked about the idea of it being, the Guild Wars 2 being a humans versus Charr type of game. And then you were the human side, you were on the Charr side, and this was about the time Eye of the North was getting started. And the feeling there was, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We want people to play together. We want people to be part of a larger group. This is a major theme of Guild Wars 2, is people's coming together to fight greater opponents. So the Charr were going to be a good guy race. So how did the Charr become a good guy race? And you see that in Eye of the North. You stop seeing Charr as exclusively bad guys you fight, and now you have Pyre Fear Shot. And we don't make it easy. We don't have Gwen, give him a big hug. We basically, there's going to be a lot of bad blood between the two races for quite some time. For 250 years, they're going to keep fighting. But we sow the seeds with Pyre and his warband right at the start that will let us be able to come forward 250 game years, 5, 6 game real years later, and say, here are the Charr, they have virtue as well.
One thing we had to deal with that was kind of a unique challenge was there were no Charr females. And it wasn't, ooh, can we make a Charr female and animate it? It was, why aren't the Charr female fighting? Why are they not? We see all these Charr, we see them storming the gates, we see the Bonfas running around, but there aren't any women anywhere in Guild Wars 1. Did they keep them at home? Do Charr reproduce asexually? How do we get that done? So we had to come up with the story of Callus Scorchrazor and explain that there had been sort of a tyrannical, a dictatorial government within the Charr that kept the women at home. And drawing inspiration from an old Celtic queen, Benicia, whose daughters, and she fought against the Romans, and there was this one story about how they were challenging the Romans, and the Celts split their army in half, and they just wanted to split it in half, so they said, all girls go that way, all boys go that way, that's half. And the Romans went, there are 2 armies approaching us. That one's all women. Get this one, and they got mauled. So the idea that the women were this change in battle for the Charr, and that when the revolution happened against their government, the women's uprising is really what gave the revolutionaries the ability to overthrow this tyranny, was one that we thought was really interesting for the Charr.
It also allows us to say the Charr are winners. They're basically a very victorious people because they have pulled together and they use all members of their society. One thing I liked about Eye of the North is, as I said, Gwen doesn't give Pyre a hug at the end, but by the same token, Pyre doesn't lead the revolution. It's the idea that we're going to suddenly change in these one actions is going to overthrow all of the Flame Legion. In reality, this is the start of the process, and it's his granddaughter who carries it forward and makes it happen. So we have a world that evolves over time.
And I think shifting gears just slightly to the Sylvari, which are our absolutely brand new race. But the seeds for them were planted long ago.
The plant puns are there.
Yeah.
They're asking where
Wait a minute, our fans are mocking me for making a pun. In any case, getting back to the Sylvari again, at what point did we realize what the Sylvari were going to be, and when was it decided they were going to be a playable race?
Again, Eye of the North, we knew it with Eye of the North, we were going to try to get the Norn and the Asura as playable races. We introduced them at that point. And at the very end of Eye of the North, we showed a tree growing, the pale tree growing, and the back line goes, there will be new races and new challenges. Now, we knew we were going to have the potential. Was it going to be a player character race? I didn't know that at the time. But it quickly evolved. Do you want to address that, or as far as what our needs were?
We looked at what races we had in Guild Wars, and we had the Asura, we had the Charr, we had the humans, we had the Norn, and none of them fit the role of elf. And I hate the word because they're not elves. But
Actually, beautiful magical.
Yeah,
was where we
beautiful
started.
magical race. The Asura are magical, but the Asura will shove the magic up your nose and tell you to deal with it. And what we wanted for the Sylvari was something a little more gentle, but still with sort of a steel spine. And we looked at different backgrounds, different games, different books, different movies, and we said there's never really been a plant race that wasn't just floppy-armed treants. And we wanted something that was connected to the land, because one of the main plot elements in Interior right now with the Rise of the Dragons is that they are destroying everything. I mean, we've seen with Primordus, he's literally making destroyers out of earth, making them out of rocks, and they go forth and destroy. And it is the world of Tyria as well as the races of Tyria that are threatened. And so, in a way, the Sylvari are representative of the land fighting back against this corruption, fighting back against this evil that's affecting it. But we thought, well, that's really high-minded. How do we make that a race? So we came up with the idea of the tree, the pale tree, who is literally rooted in the land, and that these are her children. This is her race that she has created. She was influenced by the humans so that they didn't have to look like fluffy armed treants. And she was influenced by very much Kirsten Perry. Kirsten Perry did an amazing job. We had the original design, and we had a whole bunch of different choices. And we kind of settled on one, and then she came in her spare time for weeks at night and redesigned the Sylvari to what we have now. And she and I would sit and talk lore and talk where the Sylvari are in the story and what we need from that race, both thematically and play-wise, and how could we make that something just unique to our game as much as we could. And everything comes from something, but I really feel like the Sylvari in our game have a very unique role in fantasy, that they aren't people. They have bellies like pitcher plants. They put the food in there and it rots out. They don't have organs. They can't reproduce sexually. They have all sorts of questions, and we've gotten tons of questions from players as to how they work and what they're like and what they think and how they think and do they have a brain. And it's been fascinating to figure out not only the biology but the story, because that makes for a different story. When you say that someone doesn't have